number should be all-inclusive. The 150 was additional funds that were identified several months back, in addition to the amount that had already been put in to cover project management through the end of this fiscal year, and we'd identified what the project management cost for next fiscal year would be. That question was asked of us at the last meeting. When you put all those together, that's the 193,345.
But the amount that we had talked about previously, though, for the total project county side was 150.
No, sir. That was the amount additional in the discussion several months back. You already had money for project management for the current year in it.
Okay.
We've added that to it. Those were previously approved. We had raised at that time that that included management through the end of this fiscal year, that the management will be covered for beyond this fiscal year in the normal budget process. I was asked a question at that meeting, what would that be? And we've included that number, and that's how you get to the 193.
So you're saying we roughly have 40,000 currently?
That is approximately correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
Other questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. James.
Thank you.
May have questions afterwards. We will now declare the public hearing open. No one has signed up to speak at this particular public hearing, but if there's anyone who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to this proposed amendment, please come forward, state your name and your voting district. Is there anyone who would like to address the board either in favor of or in opposition to this proposed amendment to Chapter 92? Is there anyone who would like to address the board in opposition to or in favor of the proposed amendment to Chapter 92? Hearing no comments, the public hearing is declared closed. Board, questions, comments? How do you wish to dispose of this issue?
Mr. Chairman, I guess the question I have is, this money we have to borrow, correct, to actually go do the 150, the additional funds?
Mr. Chairman, we do not plan on borrowing the money. It would come from general fund revenues or the fund balance.
And I guess my other concern is, what is our current debt situation with Dawn Wastewater 1?
Fran, you may have to help me out here, but we are paying back, or Eldon, we're paying back the 20-year interest-free loan from the Virginia Revolving Loan Fund. Debt service payments are, help me out, Fran, approximately $169,000 per year.
But are we still in it? I mean, our problem has been collecting on that service currently. Is that still the problem? Because the last I saw, we were $70,000 negative on that system. Mr. Schiebel, can you answer that?
Mr. Seeley, we're making headway on that. Part of these code amendments tonight will assist us in being able to place the liens on the properties. Some of the problem we have is that there's no actual ability to disconnect service other than to evict the people from their home when that is done. On the water system, we're able to do that. Well, we have made some headway working with the Treasurer's Office. We've been able to use Social Security numbers and attach that to that. We are on our next round of letters as well as door hangers and had quite a bit of response and have actually come down just over 5% where we were 30 days ago to today of reducing that debt.
Can you tell me what that has been running roughly?
The actual debt? Part of the issue is the penalties that are out there. When you actually look at that dollar amount, every month you do not pay your bill, you get 10% added on to that. Some of the people have gone far enough now that the penalty is now 2 or 3 times their $27 a month payment. So when you look at those, really a lot of the money that's owed is actually penalty money that would be there. We're now trying to work with individual residents and trying to work out payment plans so that they can pay that back and working out a schedule and with that waiving some of the penalties in order to allow them to catch up. Most of them that are over, it's going to be near impossible for them to ever pay the amount that's due. We've got 16 current customers that owe over $500, and we've got 21 that owe over $1,000. Actually, it's the other way around, I'm sorry. 21 that owe over 500, 16 that owe over 1,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Shebel, just to follow up to that, how much in those percentages, how much of that is, based on what you just said, how much of that is actual bill as opposed to penalty?
The total amount on a monthly billing average?
I mean, the ones you just mentioned, the
That's
21
that's the total amount that's owed to date on those accounts that are over those amounts.
But do you have a separation of what the actual usage fee would be versus what the actual penalty would be?
I don't have that off the top of my head, no, sir.
Because it's really not our intention to act like some other agencies that make a lot of money and charge penalties.
Yeah, the idea
We
is,
want to balance the system, so is there any way you can find out those numbers so we can, make a better decision?
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I would guess that those numbers represent greater than 50% of the debt. That the penalties represent more than 50% of the debt.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? As the board wishes to resolve this issue. Mr. James, when would you have to, and is there any type of deadlines tied to this particular amendment? Are there any deadlines tied to this, what we're doing tonight, as far as you're concerned, or as far as the system is concerned?
Your next meeting is in 2 weeks, is that correct?
No, it's next week.
Next week. If you delay this decision a week, it does not present any problems. But as we move farther into the spring, it does run the risk of putting us behind schedules which are very important to the grantor agencies. They put us on a pretty strict timeline, and if you weren't ready to proceed to make a decision in the next few weeks, then we've got to start having some negotiations with our grantor agencies.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Shebel.
Yes, sir, Mr.
You've indicated tonight that better than 50% of most of the people that are outstanding in their payments is really contributed to penalties and interest and things of that nature.
That's correct.
Have we had a discussion with the individuals that are involved to determine that if we did relieve the penalties and those things, would they be able to pay for the usage?
We were actually waiting for these amendments to take place to give us a little more flexibility so that right now, as we say, that we can disconnect your service, technically talking with the county attorney, we can't do that. So, but this gives us the ability to be able to put liens. It gives us the ability to be able to work with them.
So to answer my question, you have not talked to them?
We have not, sir.
Okay. It may be that we go and we chat with them and see what their ability to pay the outstanding bills just for the usage would be before we keep moving down this road that is basically yeah. Mr. Underwood, you have a comment?
Mr. Chairman, and I agree, it certainly is a very complex situation. So we do want people to be responsible. Since most of the money that's owed are fees, I'd like for this board to at least consider removing those pass-through fees, and let's deal with the cost of fees so we can begin to work with folks. Mr. Shebel and I, we've talked several times. We sent out letters and still trying to get people to pay, but if you pay your bill now, then next month you can't pay it all. Then you still got accrued late fees on top of that. So you're really digging a deeper hole, so you're never getting out of the hole.
So like an amnesty program.
Yeah. So I think, and it is sewer, and it's a very delicate and tough situation, no question, for the residents. And certainly in our budgetary times, it is very difficult. But I would ask this board to consider relieving the late fee, and then let's deal with the actual cost of service to the county.
I certainly would favor that, because when we set up the schedule as far as debt retirement is concerned, we did not include penalties and late fees because we didn't think there were going to be any. So we set the system up to pay for itself strictly through payments. And so as long as we can put up some type of system that allows that to happen, then I think it's going to be in all of our to advantage the county as well as the individuals that are involved.
Absolutely. It was our intention after this to actually meet with the individuals that have delinquent amounts, sit down with them and go over what is actually their sewer fee and what is the difference between the penalties, and try to work out a payment agreement that if they can pay X amount of paying their current fee as well as an additional amount to try to get that down, that we would work out an agreement to waive those penalties as long as they stuck to that agreement. If not, we would add those back on and then move forward with the procedures necessary to collect that debt.
Mr. Shebel, are we making the debt service payment based on the payments that we're getting?
Unfortunately, that system was set up 100% to come out of the general fund. The operation of the system was set only by the user fees. No user fees technically go towards that debt. The system was not set up to do that. That was part of the grant funding solution. So the debt payment technically comes out of the general fund for 20 years, and the payments of the $27 that it is currently pay for the O&M of the system.
I understand the point that Mr. Seeley was making, that I was incorrect in what I said, and I understand that, but the fact is, never did we include in the operational and maintenance of the facility, we did not include revenue from penalties. I mean, because we never thought we would have to charge penalties. So whatever it pays, whether it pays debt retirement or whether it pays the operating and maintenance charges of the system, the penalties were never included, and that's the point I was making.
I guess the point, the $169,000 a year debt service is coming out of the general fund because the user fees don't touch this, correct?
That has been the intent from day one, sir. It's never been part of the county's utility system. It's a separate fund altogether.
And the reason that happened is when this was originally conceived, and I'm sure Mr. James, there you move. I'm sure Mr. James would admit, this was more of a public health issue.
Absolutely.
So it wasn't a real business venture for the county to try to get into it. We were basically trying to resolve some public health issues.
That's correct.
And that's why it wasn't planned like a normal debt service payment.
There are some accounts that do pay an availability fee on a reduced amount. Many of the customers were LMIs, so they did not have a fee. Several of the customers he has that have these large bills did have to pay an availability fee of $1,650 over 5 years. Of the ones he's got, I have the same ones who have never paid a dime on their availability fee. And that would have gone toward the debt service.
But now the downside of that is, if you put a lien on their house, the lien basically just sits there until they sell their house. So they could sell their house 30 years from now and it really do us no good.
Exactly right.
But we can get judgments against their paychecks. We can go against state taxes and do those things also. So we're going to pursue all those avenues as we move forward after tonight.
If I may, if I may, there have been a couple of questions that have been raised, and let me offer a little bit of background back to Phase 1. I mean, this goes back to 2003 when the project was originally conceived. What the county committed out of general funds to paying that 20 years of debt service enabled the county to leverage the long-term loan at 0% and $1 million of grant money, federal funds that were secured by U.S. Senator and former U.S. Senator and former U.S. Congresswoman. And so the county's commitment to that was that payback of the 0% interest. On the problems that have arisen over collections, we really have been limited in the way the code was structured into what the county could do to work with the property owners. What we want to do is for those who are delinquent, and I think we're at about 25%?
24.7.
Okay, 24.7, and this ranges from somebody who's 30 days all the way to people that are up over $1,000. And you said 16 of the 182 customers are at that level. We really have had our hands tied, and we had authority to go and put liens on houses, but that, as has already been pointed out, is a pretty extreme measure. We needed some intermediate measures. First, to be able to negotiate, and to try to work out a plan, and hearing your expression of interest in giving relief on the penalty side so that we can get the operational money for the true cost of operating the system, excuse me, is very helpful. The next step, if somebody says they want to work with us, but then they don't, then we have the ability to use the state tax return set-off option that is available through state law, to where if they're going to get a refund from their state taxes, that can be redirected to paying that debt. That's a less drastic measure than a lien on somebody's house. The next the next step is a judgment, so the court has placed a judgment, and have that in place prior to having to go to the extreme of a lien. So what you're now talking about, instead of going from just sending letters, please pay your bill, to a lien, we now have a series of 4 steps that are intermediary to try to work with the folks in the community. And these are this is a set of tools, a suite of tools that we really didn't have available to us. I hope that helps clarify.
Mr. Underwood, this is in your area. How do you really want to?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to maybe table till Mr. Shebo can come back with the actual cost of what it was actually costing us. Take a look at the fees as well as the monies that are arrearage, and come back to us and let's discuss that. I don't think at this time I can make a.
Okay. Mr. Shebo, we have a meeting next Tuesday.
Just to clarify, we just want a report to show what is the delinquent rate and what is the actual service amount of the cost. All
Do
right.
you want the
The amount.
availability fees as well?
Yes, let's bring it all. Let's bring it all to the table.
And with the debt rate, what we're running in the negative.
The debt on the debt service
on the user fees.
Okay.
The debt service, the 169 is sunk cost. There's
Right.
no
Absolutely.
way around that.
That's correct. I was just making sure.
Okay.
Thank
This
you.
item will be tabled until next Tuesday. The next item on the agenda for public hearing is going to be proposed fiscal year 2012-2013 budget. Mr. Pardon, do you have any comments, or Mrs. Hatcher have any comments about the proposed budget before we open it up for public hearing?
Not unless you want any, I'll be glad to summarize a few points, but budget was presented on February 14th, and nothing has changed since then. I think we advertised the public hearing and the rates proposed, so unless there are any questions, I don't have any further comments.
Okay. Board members have any questions of Mr. Pardon or of Mrs. Hatcher before we do open the public hearing? Once we open the public hearing and your name is called, please come down forward to the podium and state your name and your voting district. And there are probably about 22 people that have signed up to speak at this particular public hearing. To save time, if Mr. Pardon will call 2 names out, one person will come forward to the podium, the other one, if you would, just come down front so that you can just move right to the podium when the person ahead of you sits down. Let's just see. Okay. Public hearing is declared open. Mr. Pardon, first person.
First 2 speakers are Charles Shoebridge and Justin Howard.
Mr. Chairman, fellow supervisors, and Mr. Parton, my name is Charles Shoebridge. I reside in the Madison District. I'm here this evening in support of the many men and women of the Caroline County who represent our full-time fire and EMS responders in the county. I myself spent 15 years in emergency service work as a volunteer in Winchester, Virginia, and as a professional fire crash and rescue employee at a top secret government installation. I know how important these people are to the citizens and to the property of Caroline County. Not all of you, and actually maybe none of you, have had the experience of being assisted by this group of people. But unfortunately for me, I have. On the morning of this past December 17th, my wife had a major heart attack. And fortunately for us, a very professional EMS team responded to her home within a 10-minute period. Lucky for us, this unit was on the Ladysmith side of the county, close to our home in Lake Caroline. She was cared for in a very proper manner and rushed to the nearest hospital in Fredericksburg. Today, my wife is alive because these people, some of which may be sitting in this audience tonight, were there when we needed them. But I must also say that on this past November the 3rd, my wife and I were doing some volunteer work at our church, Wrights Chapel United Methodist Church. And a member there was working on the wood pile, and he is a member of the wood committee that we donate wood to many people in Caroline County that don't have the funds for that. He caught his hand in the wood chipper. He was injured, bleeding profusely, and in shock. 15 seconds. Thank you, Alan. The bottom line on this was that there was no transportation in the immediate area for him, although there were 4 rescue units an eighth of a mile away. So we had to wait for somebody to Bowling Green to bring a unit over. We did have a response from a squad unit from the Ladysmith Fire Department, and they attended him with first aid. But my point here tonight is that I challenge all of you people that will be responsible if you don't fulfill the mission of what we need in this county in providing 24-hour service, because if you don't, you may be the next one that doesn't get the proper service because there aren't enough people and they're not placed in the right places on a 24-hour period. You're responsible, and you're responsible for your loved one. So I end this by thanking very much the young men and women who do this job. God bless them, and God bless you on your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shoebridge.
Following Mr. Howard is Mary Anderson and George Atwill.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Justin Howard, and I live in Western Caroline District. I come before you this evening as a concerned citizen of Caroline County. I fully support our fire rescue career staff 100%. Currently, there are serious staffing issues with both the career and volunteer departments within our own county. With this being said, counting on the volunteers is probably not the best idea, especially during the daytime when everybody else is at work. Volunteers are average people too. After work, they would like to go home, spend time with their family and friends. In the past, if a call came out, the volunteers were able to get up from their workplace to go leave and fulfill their other duties to save lives. Times have changed, and supervisors and managers will not allow that anymore. This is the main reason why I'm here this evening. If we cut these 5 positions, the 911 calls will still be received. However, most of them possibly will go unanswered. Let's just go through an average scenario. On an average day, there are 2 personnel on a medic unit, an additional 2 on the engine. The call, for example, if a call comes out for cardiac arrest, Dispatch automatically tones out for an engine and a medic unit to respond. When they arrive, they get started doing their own assessments. Then they start heading toward the closest facility, which is usually Spotsylvania, with one firefighter from the engine to help with CPR. If we cut these 5 positions, the medic unit would have to add another medic unit to call for help on that scene and also during transport. In doing this, we now would be depleting the county of not 1, but 2 medic units. In cutting these positions, the county would only be able to staff 3 medic units to cover the entire county at any given time. With the limited staffing on shift, calls cannot be answered adequately or in a timely fashion. We need these positions. Also, you see staffed ambulances a lot all around Caroline County. So honestly, they stay pretty busy. With no revenues coming into this county, transport fees make a lot of income for Caroline. If the county would change that way that fees are collected and divert them back into the Caroline Fire Rescue budget instead of the general fund, then Caroline could possibly keep these 5 positions. I always see the motto, "Help us, help you," on pretty much every firehouse or rescue squad sign in this county. I am now beginning to think that motto is false because of these budget cuts and layoffs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Howard.
I also have copies of this if you would like some.
All right.
Next, Mary Anderson and George Atwill.
Mr. Akers, Supervisors, I'm Mary Anderson from the Western Caroline District, and I've been reading the Caroline County Annual Financial Report. There are some really interesting trends in that report. Looking at the 8 years from 2003 through 2011, and looking at county expenditures, total expenditures over that 8-year period has gone up 49%. General administration costs over that period has gone up 74%. Public safety over that period has gone up 146%. Education, however, over that time has gone up 32%. Now, a possible conclusion from this is that you think crime is so bad in Caroline County that if you didn't enormously increase the sheriff's department, there'd be rioting in the streets. Now, I'm meaning that as a joke, truly. But you could also conclude that education is clearly of secondary importance. Total growth, 49%, educational growth, 32%. You can see that education is obviously getting ever smaller pieces of the pie. I would comment that if you rank the counties in Virginia on county expenditures for schools, Caroline County ranks 113th, very close to the bottom. Now, as you make budget decisions, be very clear about what's important to you in this county. And you do make your wishes known when you vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is George Atwell. I reside at 16023 Colonial Road in Milford, which I believe is in the Mattaponi voting district. As some of you know, I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Caroline County. And vocational service is one of the avenues of emphasis that Rotary International places on its endeavors. This past Thursday, my Rotary Club and I had the opportunity and the privilege of touring the technical and vocational education classrooms in the complete department at Caroline High School. Now, I've spent 31 years in public education in another school division, from classroom teacher all the way up through principalship to assistant superintendent and chief financial officer for the school division. In my opinion, in those years of experience, I've been able to walk into a school and tell you in a very short period of time how well that school is run. I also feel, in my opinion, that I've been able to walk into a classroom and discern how that teacher is performing and how the students are responding to that instruction. I stand here tonight to tell you that I was totally impressed with the activities and the instruction that is going on in those vocational classrooms in Caroline High School. We toured all the way from the Culinary Arts Academy through all of the classrooms and ended up in the cosmetology department. The students were responding to their instructors. The instructors were giving information that is developing marketing skills that those students can leave Caroline High School and in many instances find themselves reasonable employment. Now, one of the problems, obviously, is that with the number of students that are going to be graduating from those programs in Caroline High School, you don't have the employment opportunities in Caroline County for all of those students at this point. So one of the things that I implore you and challenge you is to take your economic development staff and go to Caroline High School and go through those classrooms and go through those departments and see firsthand what is going on. Now, I don't have any children or grandchildren in Caroline High School or in the school system in Caroline County, but whatever you do and whatever happens with those students at Caroline High School is going to affect my quality of life as I continue to live in Caroline County and the quality of life of every other citizen. Again, I challenge you so that when your economic development department is seeking business to come in, that they can promote the skills of students that are available to them to fill the employment opportunities that they have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Atwell.
Mr. Shebel, could you either move the top of the computer, no, move it towards us so it won't shut off. Just move the whole, flip it, no, the computer. Flip the lid towards me. Thank you. Then it'll stay on and we can see who's there. Thank you, sir.
Next two speakers are Oya Oliver and Jake Marshall.
Hello, Chairman Akers and board members. My name is Dana Klein. I'm the Marketing Major Gifts Coordinator for the Fredericksburg Area Food Bank. This is the Executive Director of the Fredericksburg Area Food Bank, Oya Oliver. Now, if we are not using the PowerPoint, I can shut this off. Would you like me to do that?
Yeah, we're not going to, you know, there's so many, Mr. Farden spoke to me tonight earlier, and there are just so many people that like to, we're probably not doing a PowerPoint tonight. Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, and thank you for having us here this evening. Fredericksburg Area Food Bank is a 501c3 nonprofit organization created in 1982 in the Planning District 16. The vision of the Fredericksburg Area Food Bank is create a hunger-free community, which there are plenty of that in Caroline County. And our mission is to aid member agencies in satisfying the needs of the hungry in Planning District 16. We serve the counties of Stafford, Spotsylvania, Caroline, and King George, and also City of Fredericksburg.
The food bank is a receiving and distribution resource for over 74 of our partner agency food pantries, including those in Caroline County. We are a full-scale warehouse operation. We are the only food bank in Planning District 16, and we work with our 74 partner agencies to get food to over 30,000 people in the community, including the County of Caroline, who are suffering from hunger and food insecurity.
Some of our programs located in many schools, including all the Caroline County schools, children's programs, one called Club Kids. This is after-school nutritious snacks and juice provided to at-risk children. And our program, a school food pantry, is a large box of food provided to school administration for them to send it home with the children that they know the family has nothing to eat at home.
We also have our Food for Kids Weekend Feeding Program. It's the most recent child's program. It began in November 2010 with 24 students. That program has now grown and provides food to over 293 students. What this does is a bag of nutritious, child-friendly food is taken home every weekend and during school breaks for children to eat over the holidays and break times over those weekends. These are for children that are currently receiving free or reduced lunches. $200 each year provides enough food for one child to eat through the school year.
Some of our other programs, one for seniors called Food for Life. This is a box of food provided to income-eligible seniors or people on SSI, disability program, once a month. And then we also distribute USDA commodities, which has 3 pantries in Caroline County that we supply.
We're also striving to increase the quality of food as well as the quantity of food to residents, including those of Caroline County. We have our community gardens. Currently, we have over 6 community gardens, including one right on the front lawn of the food bank, and we do invite you to come on down and tour and see the garden. We also have our mobile food pantry. Now, R&D Campground right down the road is a recipient of the mobile food pantry. It does come each month to distribute food to those living right here in Caroline County that are experiencing food insecurity. Volunteers and staff from the food bank assemble food and bakery items for distribution through our mobile pantry unit team to come right out here, even right down the road. With the addition of our newest distribution site, your donations are actually meeting the needs. So when you donate to the food bank, you're helping also those residents in Caroline County.
Our pantry distribution being handled by 74 other nonprofits work as our pantries. 10 of those are located in Caroline County. We need 70,000 pounds of food each week to meet the demand of our pantries. And Caroline County, during the last year, fiscal year 11, pulled 252,000 pounds of food from the Fredericksburg Area Food Bank, which equal to 201,000 meals for the residents of Caroline County.
With this pantry distribution program, according to the 2010 Feeding America Map the Meal Gap data, the number of hungry and food insecure individuals living here in Caroline County is 3,550. Of that number, 32% of this population is below the SNAP or Food Stamp Nutrition Program threshold of 130% poverty or less, and 19% are between 130% poverty and 185% poverty. So what does that mean? What that means is that 51% of the food insecure residents living right here in Caroline have access to federal food assistance programs, while the other 49%, the working poor, do not qualify for assistance. This is the meal gap, the 1,739 working poor living right here in Caroline who do not qualify for federal assistance that the pantry distribution program is assisting to help.
Caroline County is number 3 largest recipient of the food distributed by Fredericksburg Area Food Bank. In the past, Fredericksburg Area Food Bank never was on the budget of Caroline County, but this time we are requesting at least $5,000 to be allocated to our food bank, which is a kind of fraction of our cost, but still it will be a great help to us.
One last item, Caroline residents receive food assistance 16,245 times through the pantry distribution program in fiscal year 11. Food assistance by this county is up 36% from fiscal year 11, up from 11,875 visits in fiscal year 10 to 16,245 visits in fiscal year 11. We really need your assistance. Please include us in the county budget.
We also feed in 1,739 working poor in Caroline County at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Following Mr. Marshall is Melissa Lewis and David Best.
Good evening. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Jake Marshall. I'm the first lieutenant for Ladysmith Volunteer Rescue Squad, which serves the western side of the county, as well as the entire county should other units be out on calls. I've been asked on behalf of my membership to speak to you tonight in support of retaining the 5 SAFER grant positions that employ 5 full-time career firefighter and EMTs and medics here in the county. It is a well-known fact among those of us who volunteer and work for Caroline County Fire and Rescue that we operate our 911 system on the edge of system failure. What that means is that a large call, such as a fire or a hazmat incident, which we just had last week, can quickly overwhelm and take away all in-service units available in our county, which means that then, should another 911 call come out, we must rely on our mutual aid contracts with usually Spotsylvania or Hanover counties to come in and supply us with additional fire or EMS units to run our 911 calls for us. The problem with this is that in the past, Caroline has relied on these mutual aid contracts so much due to our lack of staffing both on the career and the volunteer side that now Hanover and Spotsylvania counties are becoming more and more reluctant to provide us with mutual aid. It also takes a much longer time because now, for example, Hanover County, when they receive a request for mutual aid from our 911 communication center, they have to refer that request to their battalion chief, who has to take a look at Hanover's EMS and fire system to ensure that they still have enough resources to cover the citizens of their county before they can send resources into our county. Also, the career fire and EMS personnel that serve our county serve the volunteer side of our system to a great extent. Nothing can demonstrate this better than the training that they are able to provide to our volunteer fire and EMS personnel. I, like many volunteers in this system, am continually striving to better myself and better my training to better serve our citizenry. I've just acquired my firefighter and my medic, my ALS certification, and I'm currently riding along with the fire department to gain experience as a firefighter to actually be able to get released and provide training services here for the county. And I've recently put in 500 hours riding on a career medic unit with an ALS preceptor, which is required by our medical council, which oversees us, before I was allowed to staff a medic unit by myself and provide advanced life support care to a patient in the back. And that would not have been possible without the career staff there to support us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall.
Next is Melissa Lewis, followed by David Best.
Melissa Lewis, Bowling Green District. Good evening, Chairman and gentlemen of the board. I would like to venture to say that our public school system is this county's weakest link. Caroline has so much to offer prospective residents and businesses. Things such as convenient proximity to Washington, D.C. and Richmond, friendly people, low tax rates, a rich history, and beautiful landscapes. It is our schools that turn people away, and that is shameful. To invest in public schools is to invest in the county's future. It is a common belief that the only beneficiaries of school taxes are families with children attending public schools. In my research, I found again and again that statistics do not support this statement. In fact, in a paper written by John McKenzie of the University of Delaware, he finds that school quality and local property values are both enhanced by increasing local funding of public schools. McKenzie states that every current homeowner is a future seller, and every housing unit gets sold and resold over time, whether property currently houses school-aged children or not, is irrelevant to its market value. Local property values reflect the aggregate demand of buyers, including buyers with children needing schooling and buyers who intend to have children. So implicit demand for schools is reflected in the market value of every residential property. He goes on to conclude that higher school taxes clearly do not depress property values. In fact, a simple regression analysis suggests that each additional dollar of local property taxes going towards schools increases property values by an estimated average of $34.27. Higher property values means more revenue for the county through real estate taxes collected. This is not a matter of instant gratification. It is a long-term investment. The return from this investment will benefit every person living in Caroline County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Supervisors. My name is David Best. I live in the Port Royal District. I want to urge you to look at and reconsider eliminating the 5 firefighter positions from the budget. Live out in an area that we have a whole lot is very rural. And right now we have a very long timeline for getting any kind of emergency service responses. And all this will do is exacerbate that even more. I would urge you to look at the other parts of the county budget And if you have to, take another position from each one of the non-emergency departments and give it to the fire department so they can maintain the services that they've done so well for so